Hey friends, Evelyn here and welcome to another video. Today's hopefully gonna be a fun one. Recently I've had some college friends reach out, talk to me a bit about wanting some advice on recruiting for internships and recruiting for full-time and sort of just any advice that I have for them. So I thought, why not to also share with you guys, because honestly, as long as one of you guys comments and tells me that these videos are helpful, that's all I really need to keep making these videos. So please do let me know via like or comment down in the comments below if you do end up finding this video helpful. But today's video, I just wanted to focus a little bit on sort of how I was able to stay on top of recruiting for full-time and recruiting for internships back when I was in and coming out of college, sort of the end-to-end staying on top of everything. So I'll be sharing with you guys sort of the overview spreadsheet that I use and also how I organize files within Google Drive and in my inbox as well in order to make sure that I stayed on top of everything while recruiting, because to be completely honest, it is a very overwhelming experience. You are talking to probably in the teens, the numbers of companies that you're applying to, and you're also trying to figure out the different deadlines and trying to figure out which ones you've applied to, and there's just a lot going on when you're recruiting. So what better way to feel in control and be a little less stressed than be organized in this experience itself? And so I'm going to be sharing with you guys how exactly I did that. So let me go ahead and share with you guys my screen here. I'm literally just going to walk through the spreadsheet I use, how I organize, and then my little tip for inboxes, and that'll be today's video. Give me a second to figure out how I'm gonna record this. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into my recruiting overview spreadsheet. Oh wait, actually, sorry. Before I dive into that, quick little disclaimer. I will say that this, what I'm about to walk through, might be a little bit more helpful for people hiring specifically for new grad PM roles, because that's what I was hiring for or recruiting for at the time. And so for new grad PM roles, oftentimes it's more limited, the pool of companies that are actually hiring for new grad PMs, and also the application/interview process is just a lot more personalized per company, and so it requires the sort of organization that I'm about to walk you guys through. But I still think that these tips can be helpful for recruiting in general, whether it be for internships or full-time, for whatever roles it may be. You just sort of need to make some tweaks here and there, and you could probably make it fit your situation. I used a similar process when I was recruiting for software engineering internships, and it worked out pretty well. You might just not need as complex of an organization system is all. So, okay, that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this. So this is a Google spreadsheet that I use in order to sort of track an overview of where I was at with all these various companies and stayed on top of all my job listings and applications. So let me quickly walk you through, give you a little tour here. So the columns that I have here are company, the role, a link to the program. This is PM specific because they usually have a website specifically about the new grad PM program. When the application was posted, important to know so you know how late you are in applying for it, because some of these hire on a rolling basis. And then description of the program itself, once again, probably more of a PM, new grad PM program related thing, a job listing link, and then the date you applied, and then also status. And status actually carries over into the future, which I will talk about in a second. But this is how I initially started out with this spreadsheet. So like I said before, new grad PM programs, it's a very limited pool of companies that actually hire for these. So I started out actually by populating my spreadsheet with all the lists of companies that I wanted to make sure that I looked for new grad PM programs from. And if you're curious what companies hire for new grad programs, or at least have in the past, check out this video here. I show a whole list of companies that I looked into when I was initially recruiting. I don't know why I keep saying hiring, sorry. Okay, so I actually went through and listed all the companies here first, which is why some of them don't have job links, because I ended up not being able to find one for those companies. Oh, quick little interruption. I forgot to introduce myself. For those of you guys who do not know who I am, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Evelyn. I'm a product manager working in tech in the Bay Area, but currently based out of New Jersey. And I make weekly videos here just about a lot of different things. Any questions that you guys have, my life, my career, anything that is going on with my life that I want to share with you guys. So subscribe, hit the like button if you find this video helpful, and let's keep going. that's how I populated it. But when I was hiring for software engineering, all I would do is actually check LinkedIn like every other day and then bring in listings from LinkedIn into here and populated the rows that way. So a couple of different ways you can go about populating this, whether it be companies first, if you specifically know what companies and roles you're looking for, or you can go job listing first and then bring them over. So before I dive into like how I populated the entire row, let me also show you guys the sort of color coding stuff I used. So yellow is I haven't heard back at all. I sent in an application and just went into a black hole and I haven't heard back at all. In recruiting process means that at least I've heard something back from a real person, not just like the thank you email they send, but the recruiter reached out for a screen or I got an interview scheduled. It started. And then red is it's over. Either I just never heard back and cut them off, or they told me I wasn't in, or for some reason that interview or that recruiting with that company is over. So that is how I color coded this here. And I will say before I dive into exactly how I filled these rows out, I copy and pasted this over from when I was initially recruiting, and there were some gaps here and there. So I kind of filled them out just ad hoc and random. So if these numbers don't make sense and a lot of these aren't right, that is why. So all of this, the first like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows are pretty self-explanatory in how you fill them out. Row 7, the application date, obviously you just put down when you apply. What I really found helpful is actually the status date over here, or status columns over here. So I use this to kind of track once I was in the application process with that company, what specific stage I was at, so that I knew myself, I could look at the spreadsheet and kind of be like, okay, I'm at the first round, I'm at assessment round, I'm at phone round for these, say, 3 companies. And that's super helpful because let's say you're getting close to the end of one of these final rounds, whereas another you just started the first round for, it might be helpful to give that company a heads up that like, hey, you might have an expiring offer soon or something like that. A better way to just sort of keep track of where all the timelines are overlapping and stacking up, and also to make sure that you don't schedule too many interviews in one day because that can be incredibly stressful. So that is how I use the status. I would just, first status is like whenever they first reached out or whenever I submitted the first assessment, and then I just kept adding on to it as I heard back and as I got moved on through the various flows of each company. That is my recruiting overview sheet. Super duper helpful. Highly recommend this. Honestly, it was the best way to stay on top of all the companies that I had applied to and understand where I was at with it, because you don't want to accidentally apply to a place more than once or forget a company that you really wanted to apply to. So this is super helpful in helping you do that. So let's dive into now how I organize my folders in Google Drive. My leg is falling asleep. Give me a second. Ow, ow. Okay, I'm good. Okay, let's dive into the Google Drive that I set up for this, or not Google Drive, Google folder that I set up for this. So I called it a very cute Let's Get a Job. And once again, this is a fake folder, so just know it's a fake folder. So like I showed before, I have my recruiting overview spreadsheet here. And what I actually really like to do is keep all of my like general interview prep and general resume stuff at the top of the folder, so at the first level. So you'll see here I have my recruiting overview spreadsheet, and once again this might be more of a PME thing, but I read a bunch of different PM books in order to prep for these interviews, and a lot of them are just kind of general PM books. So for example, the Lean Product Playbook, I think I got Lean Product Process from it. I took some notes on an iPad, exported it over, kept it in here for quick reference. Same thing with like strategy. I guess I read some book about strategy and took some notes there. And then I also read about some various metric frameworks, took some notes on that, and also threw them in this folder as well. So these are all sort of, same with this one. I think I read books on that and just took general interview notes there as well. So I keep all my general interview prep notes kind of quick and easy access at the top level of this folder. And then another sort of PME thing probably to do is having a general resume and then applying with company-specific resumes. So I keep my general resume here. Also, something really helpful to use is manage versions. You can then click upload a new version. That way, whenever you're updating your resumes, you don't end up having to like put the date in the title or anything like that, and it keeps it nice and organized. Okay, so another probably more PM specific thing to do is actually have separate folders for each of the companies you applied for. I created separate videos about my application and / recruiting process for the Facebook RPM and Uber APM programs. Check them out here. I'll link one of those here because I don't think I can link two. So let's dig into this Uber APM one. Like I said before, sometimes you apply with specific resumes for that company itself. So for example, here I have something titled my Uber resume, which is not what I actually named it, but very much specific to that company and that role itself. So I changed some wording on it, adjusted some things to make it a better fit. So I uploaded that resume here because you want to make sure when you go into the interviews, you're referencing the right resume. Because what if you bring up something that's not actually on the resume that they're seeing? Might be a little awkward. Ow, my elbow just slipped and it really hurt. Okay, and then also, like I said before, sometimes their companies are very specific with how they interview. So I think I can show this. I did Uber specific interview prep, and I actually found this from like a Medium article of someone who had interviewed in the past of what the interviews are like. So for example, they do product and analytical interviews. They also do a design interview. They also do a technical interview. So I threw all that preparation / background information on a doc here, took some additional notes, did some additional research, and threw it into this specific Uber folder because I wanted to make sure that when I was getting ready for the interviews that I referenced the right doc, so I knew exactly what I was locking myself into. And then what I do for every company is also have just Uber whatever company interview notes. So what I like to do is right at the end of the interview, scurry on over to my computer and quickly jot down all the questions that I got and all the answers that I gave. And I like to do this because I like to share it out with my friends and help them out / reflect on it as well. I actually have another video here of past PM interview questions and answers I've given if you're interested in seeing what those are like. So I'm just a big like to document person. So I'll put all those in a separate doc here. And then what I'll also have here is any sort of application material I submitted. This is actually something that I also included in my Uber APM video. So if you want to check that out, check it out here. But it is my application or a presentation that I sent in with my application. So if you want to see that whole deck, check it out there. So that is how I stay organized with all the different companies happening and all my interview prep and things like that. That is how I stay on top of it, is with this Google Drive folder. So there's that. Okay. The last thing that I want to quickly talk about is actually starring emails in your Gmail. I find this incredibly helpful to always star the latest email thread that you have going on with the company so that any sort of emails that come in are very much at the top of your inbox. And also if you need to respond to any emails and things like that, you immediately see it when you open up your Gmail. So you can see exactly what companies you're talking to, easy access to them and whatnot. So highly recommend you do that as well. Just star all the threads that you have ongoing with companies that you're actively recruiting for. And once that thread is dead and gone, unstar it to make sure it doesn't clutter up that space. Okay, that's all. I hope that was helpful. Let me know down in the comments below. I really hope it was helpful for at least one of you guys out there because that's really all I need. I know my videos haven't been the most entertaining and fun recently, but I promise, subscribe, stay tuned because I will be going into the office actually in New York and Chicago in a few weeks. So if you guys want to see some New York City, some Chicago vlogs and office content, food, fun, other things like that, subscribe and stay tuned for that, and I will catch you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye. Okay, I think that's all for today's video. I think I'm gonna call it quits. Woo! Okay, thank you guys for joining. Bye.